Polygon Studios. Next up, we have Aakash Mandhar from Immutable. Uh, let's hear it for him, guys.
Could we have the presentation, please? All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Aakash Mandhar, and I'm the VP of Studio Engineering at Immutable. There were some really interesting questions. If I don't answer those questions from the last talk, like hit me up. I'll try to take a stab at them too. By show of hands, how many people know about Immutable? Wonderful. I'll go ahead and explain what it is. So Immutable is a layer 2 scaling solution for NFTs on Ethereum. If you're on Immutable, you will experience gas-free trades. You will experience instant confirmation, and it is built to be fully carbon neutral, right? It eliminates the carbon impact. So we're talking about scaling and the trilemma. So Immutable is able to do up to 9,000 transactions per second, and most of our use cases are focused around NFTs for marketplaces, games, and applications. So Immutable started off as a games company. Just around the time CryptoKitties came out, we built a game called Etherbots, where the entire gameplay was on the chain because people were like, hey, this is the world computer, let's go put everything on it. But the gas fees started catching up pretty fast. You can probably go still play the game today. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars per game, so I would not advise you to go play it right now. Then they pivoted, and they said, OK, how can we make meaningful games on blockchain? So we made this game called Gods Unchained, which is a card collectible game, kind of like Hearthstone, kind of like Magic the Gathering Arena. It's actually the game director for Magic the Gathering Arena who came over, and we said, can we make a AAA blockchain gaming experience? So that's what we did. It was built on layer 1 Ethereum. We again had those scalability challenges. We had gas fees problem. Like, you can't do more than 13 to 15 transactions per second on Ethereum back then. Gas was still cheap, but not cheap enough to mint millions of cards that we had. So out of this problem and our own need came the solution, where we partnered with Starkware to go build a layer 2 solution for Ethereum. And that's how Immutable X, which is a platform offering, was created. It has a marketplace. It also has a shared order book, which helps with some of the liquidity questions that were being asked over here. And then we went ahead and also built another game called Guild of Guardians. So, prior to Immutable, I was at EA, where I led the creation of the virtual economy platform for them. Among different games, we also launched Apex Legends, which was the fastest growing battle royale game in history. We went from 0 to 50 million players in 4 weeks. So we had to build systems to scale for that. Prior to that, I was at Microsoft, where I worked on Halo, and then I was at Yahoo and other places before that. I'm also an angel investor, advisor to startups, and all of the other stuff that goes on. All right. So these are some of the games and franchises that I've had the opportunity to work on over the last decade or so. Why did I join Immutable and this Web3 gaming revolution? I really wanted to bring digital ownership to the world via NFTs. So sometime last year, I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. So I started looking around, and this was the place that I wanted to go work with. But coming back to the main topic, which is building meaningful games on blockchain. The very first question that I would ask is, what's a meaningful game? These are some of the games that I found meaningful. I'll give you all like 10 seconds to think about what some of the meaningful games that you have played in your life have been, and what have been the defining characteristics for them. So one of the characteristics that I see in the games that I find meaningful are they're memorable. They create these unique experiences that you cherish. These are not the highest quality games, like the most advanced graphics, most advanced gameplay, right? These are also not the most competitive games. These are the ones you go talk to your friends about. They're like, oh, I had this amazing game. This is the experience that I had. Blockchain games are no different, right? If you want to build meaningful games in blockchain, you have to build meaningful games first, and blockchain enhances it. So the short way to put it is, meaningful games in blockchains are games with economies and not gamified economies. So gamified economies are the ones where you're just selling NFTs and just raising the whole price, and MLM schemes and stuff that you know about. Those are not meaningful. Those are the ones I would avoid. The ones which are meaningful are the ones we'll talk about and what makes a meaningful game. So before we jump into that, like we should definitely dig into the evolving gaming business model. So I've been in the industry for quite some time. I've seen a phase shift happen. Originally, it was all box titles. We all sold $60 games. And then we shipped the game, we crunched, and then we went off on vacation for a few months. We'll come back, start working on the next game. So it's kind of like the whole movie production business, right? Like you sink a lot of money to make a game, you hope it's successful. So it was like the masala movies. The same kind of games keep coming out year over year because you have perfected the model which makes money. And people are like, okay, this is too much. How can we bring in more revenue? DLC started coming into the picture. So you release the game, you still keep releasing content after the game has released to keep bringing some more money. Then people were like, okay, we can do microtransactions. We can sell digital assets, items, and currencies in game, which is also what is stored in blockchain. And that became a thing. But these economies were all very closed. It did not have enough user adoption and acquisition. So some people came up with the idea of let's just make it free to play. Like you don't have to sell the game. You can sell all these microtransactions and items in the game after you have sold the game. So that made a lot of money for people because now the adoption was much big. And I was of the opinion back then that what can be better than free, right? Like it's free and then you can play the game as much as you want. You don't have to spend the money if you don't want to spend the money. There were some pay-to-win games. I usually stayed away from them because I didn't find them meaningful. I played the games like Apex, which you can go play and there's no pay-to-win element to it. And then now comes play and earn. Play and earn has always been a thing. So here are some of the ways you can play and earn without Web3. You can become a YouTuber, you can become a Twitch streamer, you can be an esports player, or you can become one of those Roblox map creators and game creators who can go create and earn. The problem with that kind of game is it has a very high barrier to entry because you have to have a high level of skill either in building good audiences with YouTube and Twitch, or being like 1 in a million players who can make a living doing esports. What blockchain does is it helps democratize that. Everybody can participate in the game and can be rewarded for their participation in the game, either with the time, skill, or money. So here's a stat which I found very interesting. In 2020, $74 billion was spent on in-game items. $0 went back to the players. All of it went to the corporations, right? So just let that sink in. This is the kind of opportunity that we had a few years ago. If we can build good economic incentives and engines around it and build meaningful games, this is some of the opportunity we have. So think about this as you think about the games and the experiences that you're trying to build. How can you share value back with the community, which is one of the core fundamentals of Web3. And previous talk, Aviral also talked about it. You have to share value with the community. You just don't want to be the product. So what makes a meaningful game on blockchain? It has to be fun, right? There's a lot of click-through games and other kinds of games, which I was calling the gamified economies. They have a very short lifespan. There'll be a bunch of other games which come out, and people are going to move away from those things. All the novelty is going to wear off of those games, and then the value is not going to be left in it. So the game has to be fun with or without blockchain, with or without NFTs and tokens. NFTs and tokens need to enhance the game. What's next? The utility. Okay, you have NFTs and tokens in the game. Now what? Like you have to be able to use them in the game. For folks who have cars, you drive around in your car. For folks who have a house, you go live in a house and you do things with the assets that you own. So it is very important that when you design meaningful games, the assets and the tokens that you choose to have in your game have meaningful utility in your game. In the case of Gods Unchained, we have these cards that you can see, which can be created into a deck, and you can go play a game with other people. At the end of the weekend, based on how you guys did, there could be a reward stable which comes out from the prize pool, and there's utility to that. You can use those tokens again to go buy packs and different things, or you can go cash it out for real world money. So it really depends on what you want to do, but that kind of a core loop is important. And an advice I would give everybody is just because you can make something into an NFT doesn't mean you should do it, right? So these have to be useful things which people find useful. The next thing is liquidity and valuation. So there's a question on liquidity, so we'll also touch on that. Let's start with valuation. things have to be priced reasonably based on their utility. There's a lot of speculative valuation that goes around. There's a lot of hype of this is going to go up, so everybody invest in this. That is not a meaningful valuation. For Gods Unchained, a lot of our cards are worth like tens of cents, 20 cents, or so on. And that's okay, because that is where I think the sweet spot is. It is affordable enough for players to come in and start collecting them, building their decks. And if they want to get rid of it, they can go sell it to somebody else. The way the valuations of this goes up and down is as new cards keep coming out, new sets keep coming out, there are different meta systems in the game. So there'll be a certain play style which gets created, then which is dominating, and then people have to go create a combating play style to go counter that. Because of that, there's certainly a demand for certain types of cards in the ecosystem, right? So having these knobs and people discovering different kinds of styles of play can drive the valuation of things, but it still has to be reasonable. Then it comes down to liquidity. The example that I give people is, if I'm trying to sell my cell phone, I'll go list it on eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, OLX, all of these places on my own, and then I have to see where people buy it and I have to go delist it from everywhere else. But think about the experience that you have when you're selling a house. I'm based in Seattle, so if I'm going to try selling my house over there, I work with my agent. They will go list it on a thing called MLS. Using that, Redfin, Zillow, and every other agent in the country has access to my house. So there's a listing agent fees, and there's a buying agent fees when the house is sold. So you don't want to be locked into just a single marketplace, or I have my own games marketplace, and people will somehow magically discover this. So one of the things that Immutable has also built is a shared order book. So you can list your item from within the game or any surface, and you can buy it on any of the connected marketplaces or experiences. A couple of interesting experiences are, we have a site called GU Decks, which is a fan site, where you can go ahead and look at the decks for like the top players in the weekend ranked. You can see what are the statistics for each type of deck. So there's a community built around it. And then if you have your wallet connected, you can look at, out of these 30 cards, I have 18 of these cards. I need these 12 cards. Buy. We're working with another company on an in-game overlay for Twitch streaming. So if you're streaming your game and you see that a very awesome game is happening and then somebody played this unique card, that's the utility of the card, and now it destroys the other team's characters, and you're like, oh, I want to put that in my gameplay, you can hover over it and hit buy. So these are buying experiences which don't have to be the same as the selling experiences. So in-context buying is important, so you don't have to have the same marketplace doing the buying and selling. So that's how you can provide liquidity to your assets, which have meaningful valuation. And then interoperability. Like, no game or experience is going to live forever. But people are investing their real-world money over here. So how do you create long-term value? You can go ahead and do this in multiple ways. You can go ahead and say, I'm going to have a franchise of games. So as one game goes down in popularity, a different kind of game will start coming up. So if MOBA start going down, Battle Royale games is a thing, and the next time there'll be some other kind of a theme coming. So is there interoperability? Is there long-term value for my assets and tokens? So that is important. You can go ahead and partner with people like we partnered with Sandbox. So these 3 Guild of Guardian characters also have manifestations in Sandbox. People often misinterpret interoperability as the same asset working across multiple things. These are not same assets. These are entitlements which say you have access to this thing, and there'll be a different physical representation in the art style of the game. So that's a misnomer that I would like to clarify. And then the third one could be, if unfortunately a certain game or a product goes down, you can use this as an acquisition tool. You can be like, oh, for this particular game which no longer exists, bring their NFTs, we'll give you in-game tokens or credits or whatever. So there's residual value, and you can use it for user acquisition. So think interoperability, think how can you acquire other people using this Web3 paradigm. Because in Web3, there are no secrets. You know everything about which account owns what. What you don't know is who owns that account. So you can use that information to your advantage. Finally, there are lots of stakeholders when you're designing these games, because early on it was just players and the companies. So I've left the companies out of this. So they're investors. These are the people who are just putting in money. They're not really putting in the time or the skill. Then there are players who are playing because it's fun, and the earners are the ones who are playing to extract value out of the system to put food on their table or whatever they want to do. I was talking to Siddharth Menon from Tegro yesterday. He had a very interesting perspective. So go to his talk and check it out. He adds a list of traders to this. So there are people who are not long-term investors, but who want to trade and like extract value out of the system because there are market inefficiencies in how all of this stuff is priced. So we have to design our games to make sure the incentives are aligned for all of these people. So it's not as easy as I'm the only source and I'm the only sink, which is what happened with the closed economies. So something to keep in mind when you're building meaningful games. So where are we? Like, if you guys remember Snake on 3310, I used to play it a lot. It was a meaningful game. It was ahead of its time for the kind of games that we could have on mobile back then. This is the same phase we are in with blockchain gamings. We have very few AAA experiences. Like Gods Unchained is as close to a AAA experience as you can get. Feels like a proper Hearthstone-like game. But we're still here. There's a lot of innovation that needs to happen. So we're very early on. Again, as Aviral was saying, this is a rocket ship. We need to get on it on the right time and build these meaningful experiences which can drive value to the community and can generate value for all the stakeholders in the economy. So there are some key challenges to go build this. Security was one which was already raised. We are built on Ethereum directly as a L2. So we get the decentralization and security of Ethereum. Ethereum also has the biggest ecosystem. So there was a question about Polkadot. So we are also all in on Ethereum because the ecosystem is the biggest one which is available right now. It has the most number of developers, most number of nodes. This is where we want to be. Scalability. We currently do 9,000 transactions per second, which is completely gas-free. So if people saw, there was a land sale last week by the BASE folks. So the gas fees on Ethereum had skyrocketed. Somebody paid $3,800 to buy a $275 worth of NFT. So with us, it's zero. So you don't pay any gas fees. And you can do up to 9,000. 9,000 is the starting point. Like even in the last talk, we were talking about this. We built systems which could handle 300,000 requests per second at EA. And we felt that, yeah, that was good. 9,000 just scratching the surface. So if Ethereum goes to 100,000, we can 60x that. So that's a number that we could potentially be at. Ease of build is also very important. We have APIs available for people, and we're fully carbon neutral. Just another number I wanted to put up. We have generated over $100 million worth of L2 NFT trades with zero gas fees. And thank you. I'll open up for questions now.
Thank you so much. Please, yeah.
I was curious about when you talked about metas in particular, and I was
Yeah.
curious about when you talked about metas in particular, and in Web 2 at least, there's player-defined metas that come from games like Counter-Strike, and there's often publisher-defined metas when you bring in a new class and there's nerfs and buffs, etc. How does Web 3 actually influence them? Because it's another layer. Like, how do you kind of balance keeping the game meaningful when Web 3 is actually evolving the meta alongside it? Yeah.
It is very hard. I don't think anyone has a solution right now. It's an open economy that you're trying to go ahead and balance. So I would say the only way to do this is very carefully and don't experiment too much to completely ruin things. So take it slow, and over time we'll all figure out like how to go manage this thing most effectively.
Yeah, can we have the mic there, please?
Yeah, hi. Can we use Immutable for non-gaming dApps? Like
Yes.
if you are building something for EdTech or for NGOs or something?
Yes, so as long as you have NFTs or tokens involved, you can use Immutable. It's built for marketplaces, applications, and games. But we have a roots in gaming, so that's where we come from. It's a unique strength because we built the platform to go solve a gaming problem. So it's like a good intersection of us building our own games and having our own platform, but it can and is already being used by different applications. And because we had gaming NFTs, it's also being used by multiple marketplaces.
Thanks.
Just would like to know here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Would it be possible for you to shed some light on how you're managing the zero gas fees? Is there any trade-offs like?
Yeah, so we end up using the ZK rollup technology, which was also mentioned in the previous talk. We have partnered with Starkware to go do that. Using that, we're able to do 9,000 transactions per second. We write the rollups on our own. So these all get written back onto the layer one. and we are just eating the gas fees for that because we're writing batches. Think of it almost as a batch, which is eventually written back onto layer 1. So all of your stuff is instantaneously available, and it gets written to layer 1 on a cadence.
You guys are absorbing the batch writing.
Yes, but then again, what we're writing is we're writing the hashes of those ZK rollups, which means we're writing very minimal data, and we end up absorbing that. And whatever is the carbon footprint of those kind of transactions, we end up offsetting it.
Got it. Thanks.
Mic here, please.
Yeah. Okay. Here, in the center. Shall I go ahead?
Hey, Karan here from So Strong. Great talk.
Thank you.
Do you have any examples of gamer experiences today which would not be possible if not for NFTs?
Yes. So this was a question which I had. Like, I had a physical game disc. I could go sell it at GameStop. I could give it to my friend. I could do whatever I want with it. All my digital entitlements, which are in-game items, and game entitlements could not be transferred or sold to anybody without the explicit permissions of the platforms that they're on, right? So you have digital assets. You can go send it to anybody in a completely permissionless manner. You can go list it on marketplaces for other people to build, and other people can use those assets to go build on top of it. So these are your assets to do with whatever you please in a permissionless, decentralized manner. It is no longer controlled centrally. Because this is a common question I get asked, which is like, why can't I just use a database for all of this? And the answer is because it's not just the in-game stuff, it's out of the game stuff which gets unlocked for you. And you can build a bigger and richer ecosystem out of it.
Agree with that, but any examples? Like today, some examples which are enabled through NFTs?
Yeah, so CryptoKitties was a thing. If you have CryptoKitties, you get certain tokens and things within our game, right? You can take our tokens and you can go use it in a different kind of a game. People went and made their own games using the Gods Unchained cards, and you can completely go do that, and people can go start enjoying that in the community. All you need to do is have those cards, and you can start participating in those.
One last question.
Yeah. You mentioned aligned incentives for all stakeholders here in the center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you shed some light on how can this be balanced? Like all stakeholders can be given aligned incentives, and yet like the token balance is not harmed. Like if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, this is again one of those areas we're exploring. I can tell you, at least on the Immutable side, what we say is 25% of all of the fees that you're paying, because if we don't have any gas fees, it has to be paid for in a different manner. So it is almost like a credit card transaction processing fee. So we'll take like 1% or 2%, depending on what the percentage fees is, from the transaction volume. We say 25% of that should come through as Immutable X tokens. And those tokens are then taken and sent back to the staking pool. So people who have invested in our token and staked their tokens can be rewarded for staking their tokens. People who are playing the game can be given rewards in Immutable tokens, right? So this is how players get incentivized, owners get incentivized, and you can take the token, you can go to any decentralized exchange to cash them out to fiat currency. And these balance and what percentage goes where can be changed over time. We have weekend rewards, so you play the whole week, at the end of the week you get rewards. We can also have daily play and earn rewards. So there are different mechanisms that you can use to build out your economy and align the incentives for people.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aakash. He would be available for the rest of the conference. You can ask more questions to him. And